Everybody, welcome back to my channel. If this is the first video that you see after clicking the subscribe button, welcome to the family and thank you so much for subscribing. If you've been a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. Today we'll be having a very interesting conversation. This is the second time we shoot this video. We first shot it in Pretoria and then now we're in the mother city and hopefully this turns out, well, I think it's going to turn out great. So yeah, I'm not alone today. Please introduce yourself.
She's with me, obviously you guys. Hi everyone, I'm Pabi Mbedzi, and I'm a girl that wears many hats. So I'm a student. I'm doing my master's right now. I'm a 2-time graduate, cum laude. Thank you very much. And I'm the founder of an anti-gender based violence organization called I Hear You, and that's just me in a nutshell. Yeah.
So what we'll be talking about today is we'll be talking about abuse, but a certain type of abuse that I personally think is overlooked, and you're just going to, I'm personally going to be educated today because there's a lot of questions I have. So you said you are a founder of I Hear You.
Yes.
What is I Hear You? Briefly, what is I Hear You?
Yeah.
The name, everything.
So, like I said, we are an anti-gender based violence organization, and we focus on educating people about gender-based violence. There is a lot that needs to be learned on this movement that people aren't really aware of. I'm not saying that we know everything or whatever. That's not what activism is about, but rather learning what we know and sharing that knowledge with people. And so that's basically who we are in a nutshell. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And the name I Hear You, how did she come up with that?
So I think if you pay attention, not even too much attention to the name, you know that it's about listening. The beginning of education, especially when it comes to things like gender-based violence, starts with education, and the only way you can educate yourself is through conversation, through listening to somebody, through listening to what somebody is telling you, not to be defensive or to respond, but to actually understand what they're saying. So even the logo with the ear stems from just listening.
True. I hear you.
I know, right?
So when we let's just dive into the topic of abuse. What is abuse?
So you obviously get different types of abuse. There's like a scale on what is considered to be abuse and what is considered to be maybe someone hurting your feelings, or maybe someone just not doing things the way you want them done to you. But in terms of the different types, you get rape. Sorry, trigger warning, you guys. You get rape, you get physical abuse, you get emotional, mental, psychological abuse, which is one of the same thing, and you get economic violence. It's like a whole umbrella of like violence against the next person. So the one abuse I want to speak about is emotional abuse.
What is emotional abuse? How does one identify that hey, this is the situation that I'm in?
Okay, so I want to answer the first part of the question first. Emotional abuse is basically somebody controlling the next person using emotions. So by embarrassing, by humiliating, by manipulating, by blaming, by overly criticizing somebody, that's what emotional abuse is. And what was the second question? Sorry.
How can one identify that this is the situation I'm in? Like, this is emotional abuse.
So it's quite hard to diagnose. Like, unlike physical abuse and all the other types of abuse, sexual assault and stuff like that, emotional abuse is quite insidious. It's easy to miss. So to know that this is what it looks like in your life, you actually need to know what emotional abuse really is. Yeah, so you can't diagnose it without really knowing. And it can happen to you, and you could be like used to that. You could be immune to the emotional abuse and not recognize it in your own life, which is most cases of emotional abuse. So like you can identify it by repetitive hurtful behavior from a person. You can like just patterns. Abuse and emotional abuse is the only type of, not only, but like the type of abuse that requires it to be a pattern for it to be abusive, if you get what I mean.
So let's say somebody's giving me the silent treatment, or somebody is making me feel like I'm the one that's always wrong, or like how do I don't know if I'm making sense. Like how do I immediately pick up that no. And are there types of emotional abuses?
Yeah, so there are types of emotional abuse. So that's also like a two-part question.
Yeah.
So let me just answer the types of emotional abuse first. You get like really obvious types of emotional abuse.
Yeah.
It's very verbal. So like if someone is name calling, if someone's calling you out of your name, that's obviously emotional abuse. If someone's judging you, or someone ordering you around, like that's obvious. That's obvious kinds of emotional abuse. But there are, like I said, insidious types of emotional abuse, which is like opposing. You know, if someone is always like opposing what you're saying, it like leaves you wondering, like, was that like, did that really happen, or am I overreacting, or did everyone? So if someone's always opposing, you say something random like English is my favorite subject. You know, the person can be like, yeah, but English came with the white man. And so you're anti-black because you don't like English, or because you like English or whatever, or this person is your favorite artist, and they're like, no, but then their music sucks or whatever. They're just always opposing you, always here. You know someone is here, like for no reason, you know. And another kind of emotional abuse would be like blocking. Like blocking communication. So you mentioned the silent treatment. That's a type of emotional abuse. And also like maybe if we're talking about, maybe if we're in an intimate relationship and we're talking about things that hurt us, and you say what you need to say, but when it's time for me to talk about what I need to say, you storm out. Like, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to have this conversation. Like, what am I meant to do with everything that I have inside? Yeah. So that's also emotionally abusive. Let me think of another way. Like, gaslighting. Gaslighting is emotional abuse. Gaslighting is when your abuser tries to change the reality of the actual abuse. So maybe you confront them that, oh, you did this to me. They're like, no, I didn't do that. No, that's what you think, or that's not the actual case, or whatever. Just trying to shift your reality from the actual truth. And I can't think of another one.
You know, as you're speaking, I'm also like, I'm thinking back of like certain of different scenarios. And how can, let's say you've identified that, no, this is, I need to change the way I communicate because it might come off as being very emotional abusive. So how then does one, let's say you're in a relationship, facilitate those kind of conversations of, okay, I'm going to give you a chance, you're going to give me a chance. Okay, when you're saying what you want to say, because I know I'm guilty of this, when you're saying something, I'm like, okay, then the lawyer comes out like, on point A, by the way, that is not how it was, this is how it was, on point B, or like, how does one facilitate that, and how do we have healthy conversations in relationships? So,
like emotional abuse, I would say, like gives you like leeway a little bit, you know, like if it's physical abuse and someone does this, I'd say get out of the relationship, you know. But if someone is emotionally abusive to you and you still want them in your life and you're like, okay, let's work it out, then you have that conversation, like you're saying, have that uncomfortable conversation, set boundaries, you know. It's all about setting boundaries. It's all about knowing where to not cross the line and doing certain things so that the other person feels that their boundaries are respected, you know. Like if you, for example, have a conversation with someone, you let them know that you don't like this happening, I don't like it when you talk over me, I don't like this, I don't like it when you undermine me or whatever, and they take that in, and maybe for like a few weeks or whatever, they abide by your boundaries, and after that it's
bad.
You understand what I mean? Then like you revisit that conversation, and if it's persistent, then it becomes a pattern. Then it becomes
emotional abuse is the type of thing that is
a pattern. Then it becomes emotionally abusive, because I've spoken to you about this. Maybe before you didn't know, you didn't like realize that this is how you are. But now that I've spoken to you about this, and I'm speaking to you about this again, and nothing is changing, then it's like.
So when it comes, okay, let's bring it back to self. When you identify it, or when when you guys have had that conversation, how does one deal with it?
So how does one deal with being emotionally abused? So
you know that saying, hurt people hurt others, because I think now that's gonna also jump on the next person, because that's the environment they're used to. So now they are. Well, how can I prevent it from passing?
So first and foremost, I'm not a professional, guys.
These are solely our views.
I'm an activist, so I just speak on what I've learned. But what I would say, like we said, is setting boundaries. You know, like set boundaries for yourself, and like. For example, a boundary would be, if you call me out of my name, this conversation is over. Maybe you deal with a person that's always rude to you, or if you yell at me, I'm going to walk out the door. You know, like you set those boundaries and you stick to them, because if you don't stick to them, it'll give them a leg to stand on to further emotionally abuse you. To be like, you can't even keep your own boundaries. You know what I mean? And then you make yourself a priority, you know? Like you take yourself outside of that situation, and you take time with self to notice, how is this making me feel? How am I responding to this? How do I wish to respond to this? Do I want to continue this relationship with this person? Like, take that quiet time alone to really like organize your thoughts, to gauge how you want to go about dealing with this, and speak to people that will speak life into your situation, you know, because like you spend so much time with your abuser that what they say is a reality now. How they perceive you becomes a reality to you. So you forget who you are. You forget what real is. You forget what a normal self-esteem feels like, because you're so accustomed to what your abuser is letting you believe, you know. So speak to people that love you and care about you. Speak to your mom. If your mom is the emotional abuser, speak to someone else. If you know, like, speak to people that will call it out, you know, because you tend to think that, am I making this up? This is not that bad? Am I overreacting? You know, so speak to someone that will be like, oh wait,
your feelings are valid.
Because like, what do you mean? This is how they treat you, and that affirmation does wonders to your self-esteem. You know, it does, like, validation, especially from people that matter, really goes a long way. I know what I'm talking about. So stuff like that, you know, like just take time away, speak to people that give you life, and if you have the money, seek a professional. Like, why not? You know?
The same way we take care of our bodies, I think we should take care of our minds.
And you can actually report emotional abuse to the police station, hey? So just to make sure that you have that sort of trail of evidence in case something happens to you, you know?
Sure.
It does suck that as women, or as, I don't want to say women because men experience abuse as well, but we can't ignore the stats, you know.
100%.
Like, it's just sad that we have to go about these means to create evidence in case something happens, you know.
And any closing words in terms of, especially this topic, other topics, social media pages?
So just know that emotional abuse does not discriminate, okay?
100%.
It can happen to you, anyone. It can be your mom, your gardener, it can be your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Like, no one is exempt from emotional abuse. Ooh, sort of like and anyone can be a perpetrator as well. So just catch us on social media. We post a lot about gender-based violence and what that looks like in our everyday life, in case you may not know what misogyny, what physical abuse, or what rape means. And we are I Hear You _SA on Twitter, and we are I Hear You _SA on Facebook and on Instagram.
So I think my closing words is, we are all a work in progress. So
Yes.
don't think that you are not hurting someone in any way. And the quote saying that you are a villain in someone's story shouldn't just be a norm. Like if you hurt someone and if you were that villain, take your time to understand it, and then if it is emotional abuse, educate yourself, and also let's improve on self so we can be better people and make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is it from me and Pabi. If you like the conversation, I'm gonna have all the social media handles like in the description box. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah,
Thanks for having me.
oh yes.
Oh.